It's like a breakup that you know is happening, right? You're like, damn, we got to go to dinner. I got to say what I got to say. Running back's turning 30. He's going to fall off a cliff.
Was there certain things you were looking for in an organization or a team, or just whoever paid you the most?
So, right? It was a...
Welcome to Willing to Fail. I'm your host, Peyton Bennett, as usual. Today we got a very special guest. He's a 12-year NFL vet, a 3-time Pro Bowler, and the Rams' all-time leading rusher with over 10,000 career rushing yards, which puts him 18th on the NFL all-time leading rushing list. So with no further ado, welcome to the show, Steven Jackson. How are you?
I'm good, Peyton. I'm good, man. To help you a little bit, I hope you don't mind because you're going to edit this. The 10,000, the Rams rushing record, I ended up with 11,000 something for 18. Just for clarity of your intro. But I'm doing good, my man. How are you, baby?
Good. Yeah, I mean, all-time leading rusher for the Rams, that's not just no shy organization. There's some good running backs that have been there, like Eric Dickerson, Marshall Faulk, one of your teammates. Todd Gurley was there for a while.
Yeah, so the to your point, the team is rich with history at the running back position. So the moment one, when I was drafted there, I didn't anticipate that because Marshall was still on the team. But then secondly, once I was awarded, becoming the starter of that great organization, I didn't felt the pressure of having to perform because they have had such success at the position.
Yeah, and I want to go into that kind of your reaction of being drafted there, but I think first it's better to start at the beginning, like most parts. So for you, what was your upbringing like? Like, what got you into football as a kid to begin with?
I started playing football at the age of 7. And initially it was just, my mom and dad finding something extracurricular for me to fall in love with and get out and burn some energy. And lo and behold, funny story, baseball is my dad's favorite sport. He grew up playing it. And on the baseball diamond, I was about 7 or 8 years old. I get hit in the face with a line drive at a local rec, right? At a rec center, just think like after school rec center, kids just kind of like policing themselves. And I caught a line drive. That said, pickup game, I caught a line drive to the face. And I was like, nah, baseball's not for me, right? So I went in a different direction, and I went and pulled the helmet on, regardless of like the long-term outcome of the sport. I can hear someone being sarcastic. But as a 7-year-old, I'm like, give me a helmet to protect my face, right? And slowly and surely, though, I started falling in love with the psychology of the game and the team, like the whole concept of team. I really felt a sense of closeness and a sense of family with football.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny that like an injury or like pain switched you from baseball to football. Usually it's the other way around.
Right. So, yeah, maybe if I didn't get hit in the face.
So you said you started playing football at 7. At what age were you like realizing that like you're way more athletic and faster and stronger than the other kids?
I would say actually, I was always tend to get like MVP of the certain teams I was playing on. Didn't think much of that. It just kind of was one of those things. I just always wanted to get better. How can I improve year in and year out? It wasn't until I got to high school and like maybe I would say that senior year, started rolling in some of these envelopes of the university saying that they're interested. I'm like, wait, maybe I'm just not a local, highlight, but I'm actually getting recognized around the country with having some true talent.
Yeah, I mean, being in high school in like the Vegas, Nevada area, like it's not really known for football like California or Florida or Texas or Georgia. Did you feel like that kind of hurt your recruiting, or did you feel like it was tough to compare how good you were nationally at that time?
You know what? To your point, I was the tip of the spear. I was not the first, but I was dang sure one of the first, right? So I would say it was one of those things, Nate, it was like a badge of honor. Now you wanted to go somewhere and prove that, we do play the sport and we could play at a high level being from Vegas. So I'm sure I flew under the radar for a long time because the recruitment here wasn't as strong as it is now. As we've had like 4 or 5 kids just get drafted in this last draft from Vegas background. But in, 20, 25 years ago, it was more of a badge of honor wanting to rep the city.
So what was your recruiting process like? Like, how did you end up choosing Oregon State?
I boil it down in a quick notes. Everyone east of the Mississippi saw my physique and thought I would be a great DN or linebacker, right? Didn't see a lot of me. Probably had a ton of running backs already in their backyard that they've already, trusted. So a lot of teams across the East wanted me to play linebacker or DN. only teams that really was considering me playing running back and not having changed the position, which I didn't want to change my position, was the West Coast. And those are the teams that, had it easier to make their way to Vegas to see me play. Probably saw my highlight reels, right? So boil it down, man. It kind of just boiled down to who was going to allow me to stay running back, and that was most of the West Coast teams. Then if you hone in on that decision more, Washington State, and Oregon State, those 4 teams in the Northwest was running the Pac-10 at the time. USC, UCLA were in down times in their programs. So kind of Oregon State picked me, and don't want to be continue with the story as to just draw it out, but it's one of those. They had a senior running back. They were going to need a running back in the future, and the marriage kind of made sense.
Yeah, I mean, look at the stat sheet. It looks like you started getting a lot of carries right away. So I'm sure that was a big part of the process. But going back to them wanting you to play defense, I'm assuming you played defense in high school a little bit?
A little bit, yes, I did. I played a little strong safety and outside linebacker. More of a pressure guy. Troy Polamalu, I want to boil it down like that. You get my point.
Yeah. So you just fell in love with the running back position. Was that what you were always playing at a young kid?
Yeah, so I was a late bloomer. I started at 7 years old. I was typically the smallest and the shifty running guy on the team, right? So it made sense at that time. And then I would grow to the stature of over 6 foot late, like junior year. So I was a late bloomer, but at that time I had already played, 8, 9 years of the position. I was really comfortable in it. And now I just have this monstrous of a body to adapt to. So it was my comfort zone. It was a position I played all the time. Then on defense, it was more of a natural raw talent where, it totally makes sense seeing how the game has definitely evolved today.
Yeah. So there's not many players built like you today that are just the ground and pound, like getting especially as many carries. Like at Oregon State, you're the only player in Oregon State history to have over 300 rush attempts in a season, and you did it twice. So what is other than just your overall size, what else gives you an advantage, durability wise, that you can take those hits over and over and over again and play through the paint?
I was always very conscious of taking care of my body. I was a cold tub guy early in life. I was a guy that's always conscious of what I put into my body. And then I also try to make sure I stayed in shape year round. I never kind of allow myself to get out of shape. And I think those processes allowed me to just become more disciplined over the years. As I would become in contact with more advanced, physicians and trainers, more learning of my body. You get to the NFL, you have all these things at your exposure. So already coming in with that discipline and consciousness as a young player, just helped me prolong my career and never allowing myself, to kind of take a day off, so to speak.
Where do you think that work ethic and that discipline comes from? There's not many 18-year-old kids that are focused on their diet while they're the first year in college.
No, I wouldn't say I was I wouldn't even to that. I wouldn't even say I was like a 95%. I was a guy that allowed myself cheat days, right? So I wasn't just the broccoli guy either. But to that point, the discipline came from my father. He was one that served in the military. Then outside of that, he's just always provided for us. And watching him day in and day out, just continue to show up, continue to provide, making me responsible from the smallest of responsibilities. I always had to have my bed made up, right? So it's those small things that I just think compounding interest of just being disciplined helped me.
Yeah, starting at a young age, having a military dad, that makes a lot of sense. That can carry on. So at Oregon State, was it you seem pretty driven and pretty disciplined? Was it always from a young age, whatever it takes to get to the NFL? Was that always the goal?
It was skewed. When initially I was very linear and I thought just want to get to the NFL and just focused on that. Then once I got to once I got to the campus and I started meeting other people from different walks of life, and also realizing just making it to that level was beating the odds. So to make the next leap, it was going to take even more responsibility of me becoming a better player, but also just the reality of it may not go any further and I need to take advantage of this education that I'm receiving. And I would say then my life kind of skewed in a way that holistically I started seeing things in the importance of kind of just becoming a more full of an individual.
Yeah, just kind of growing up and learning about the world in college.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So looking at, was it always in your goal to leave after 3 years? Was that always the plan?
I wouldn't say it was a goal. I definitely wouldn't say it was a goal, but making it to the NFL and wanting to be a first round selection. Um, Being projected, guys, when you get to upperclassmen, junior, senior year, you get these projections from the draft. And once my projection came back that I was a first round kind of talent, I was like, okay, we'll just see how the junior year played out. And then you led into it a little bit earlier, maybe off camera, but my Pro Bowl, my bowl game my junior year in my hometown, uh, just had a rock star of a performance, which made it hard decision, right? Being at a small market, do you take advantage of being on national television with that kind of performance, or do you come back for a senior year campaign?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the stats from that 149 rushing yards and 5 total touchdowns, 4 on the ground, 1 receiving. That's it, especially in your home, like being back in your hometown area. With that kind of feel like a full circle moment? Did it feel like, all right, I think this part of my journey is done?
It felt like it, right? It felt like if you were going to destiny, if you were going to take a leap of faith, it felt like that was the cliff, right? So you're like, either you're going to jump now, or you're not going to jump. So I kind of felt that swept up in the moment of making that decision. But, also in the back of my mind, I have to be honest with you. Willis McGahee, running back for the Miami Hurricanes that year, maybe the year before, would go on to get hurt in the Fiesta Bowl, right? So as a running back, in the correlations of having a great campaign, do you roll the dice and possibly get hurt?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, opting out of the bowl game wasn't nearly like a thing back then like it is now where you're...
No. It was actually frowned upon if you would do something like that.
Yeah. All right, so then transition, then you're going into the NFL. Like you said, you're that first round grade. What were your visits like? Did you know you were going to the Rams, or what was your reaction when you got drafted to a team that has Marshall Faulk?
Check this out. I didn't take one visit.
Really?
I was one of those players that was stealth. I think I was on a lot of people's draft board, watching. And that year, kind of like this year was quarterbacks, but my draft, it was a run on receivers. And when you have quarterbacks and receivers move off the board like they did in 04, the needing a running back is not such a pressing thing, because you're seeing this other talent, move off really fast, and you found like you could get this value of a pick late in the rounds. So I would be that person. I would be the person that projected with this top 10, top 15 talent that slides to 24. So not knowing who had the interest in me, just knowing I was on everyone's board, and it was a decision too. A lot of consensus of me being the first guy off the board for the position. It was just a matter of when someone's going to need a running back.
Yeah. So for you, your reaction was it important to you what team you went to, or were you just excited to go to the NFL?
Well, it was important. I thought it was important what team I went to, because I wanted to be used right away. I was, as a true freshman coming in from high school, I walked into a locker room and I played immediately, right? So to be drafted in high regard, and then having to sit a year, it didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like, if you didn't need me, why would you waste a pick on me, kind of thinking as a 20-year-old. And then lo and behold, it was one of the greatest things that probably happened for me, and I say that because I actually had a chance to sit a year, almost treat my rookie year like a redshirt year. And I saw how to prepare myself, but then also I was taking in all this Hall of Fame talent and how they prepared themselves for the game. And each of them did it differently, from Isaac Bruce, Orlando Pace, Marshall Faulk, to even Torrey Holt. All these guys individually were professionals, pro, but they went about how they did that different.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be an exciting team to join, like, once you get over the fact that, like, you're used to playing all the time and kind of, like you said, taking that step back. But, I mean, joining a team like that, just being surrounded by that talent, that had to be super exciting, because they were just in the Super Bowl, like, 3 years before.
Yeah, right. And then they had, I want to say the year prior to drafting me, they were like 14-2 or 13-3, right? So not only coming off a Super Bowl appearance, but then having a hell of a year the year prior. And I walk into that, and it didn't take me long to realize that I was actually probably blessed from being selected there, OTAs. And that's the off-season training thing, right? So it's the off-season training activities for those that don't know. And in the off-season, like right now, those guys are training in OTAs in preparation for fall camp. And this is when you're learning the system, offense, defense, and things. And my first week of OTAs, to see the speed and the way the guys played, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I get it.
So what do you think was like your welcome to the NFL moment? Was it at the OTAs at practice, or was it like on the field, like, all right, this is different?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely OTAs in practice. It was, I recall catching a ball in the flats, and you 2-3 yards up the field, and then you catch the ball, turn up the field, and you're trying to outrun everybody. And I remember catching the ball, DB slipped down. I made a move. He slipped. He loses his footing, and he pops up, and he comes back, and he's like tagging me off, right? It's like, damn. Like, in college, you outrun that guy, and more than likely you're scoring. And then in pro and the professional level, wanting the reaction time for that guy to pop up off the ground, and then his speed, right? It's just like, okay, this is a different level.
Yeah. But I mean, it's also got to be good too, especially the running back. I feel like it's probably more important than any position to go to a good team instead of a bad team. I feel like a running back on a bad team is like set up for failure, where a running back on a good team where you can like play with the lead and like pound the rock like you're supposed to. So
The thing that's a really interesting point that you make, because it could be twofold, right? You can get worn out, to your point, but also typically good running backs, for real, natural runners, the flow of the game allows you to settle into who you are. So getting those carries early, you kind of learn who you are, what techniques are going to probably lend themselves best to you to be productive. If one doesn't give you that many opportunities to do that, you sit on the bench too long, you don't make enough plays, you could be replaced by a cheaper and better option.
that's true.
But it's twofold.
Yeah. So for you, how long did it take until you felt like the game started to slow down and you felt comfortable, like kind of like you did in college?
I would say slowed down truly in my third season. My second season, and that will be the year I started, right? So my rookie year, backed up Marshall. Second year campaign, I was a starter. And then there, we started having some turmoil as a team, right? And things get rocky. We had a change of head coach as well. So it was very stressful. Although the game was slowing down, so to speak, of like me knowing my responsibilities, it was a curveball of events happening in the background, which took my focus away, right? So now you're in survival mode. Is coach going to be here? He's not going to be here. Who's going to be the next coach? Do I get replaced with that new regime? It would be my third year. Head coach is replaced, comes in. There's a meeting of minds, and then I'm effectively used, and the game truly. And that's the 1,600-yard year where I go to my first Pro Bowl, right? So confidence is through the roof. Game slows down, and then there's assurance in the background that now here's a coach that I thought at the time would be with me for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's a lot of turnover in the NFL in general, but you kind of turned into like the staple of that Rams organization for more than a decade. I mean, I was looking at the stats, so you played at least 12 games each of your first 11 seasons, and you rushed for over 1,000 yards for 8 years straight, which is crazy. So you kind of talked about like the durability, like kind of your discipline, your diet, the cold plunge, that stuff. Was there new techniques you picked up in the NFL, like watching some of those older veterans, or was there like learning how to play through pain, or do you feel like you just your old habits were helping you carry you through that process?
I realized midway, about year 5, 6, that recovery is just not in the building, and that's the training room, right? So there's not the Ram staff or your NFL or college staff. You go in there, you get ice wrapped on your ankle or your knee or whatever, right? And you go in there for the hour, however long, and you leave and you go to your apartment, or you can leave to go to your home. Recovery doesn't stop there. Actually, it starts back over, right? Because at that point, you've commuted somewhere 30 minutes or longer, and it's probably best to put a little bit more ice on the inflamed area. So I learned that recovery is around the clock. And then the other thing that I also realized for myself was seeking other things, other practices, acupuncture. I adopted those things, right? So not only am I doing the cold plunge, but now I'm bringing these other techniques of helping me recover.
And yeah, it seems like you were kind of ahead of the curve of all the trends and stuff now. Any advice to younger athletes or people that are just getting into college or the league of like advice to take care of your body, or just like you said, just like the acupuncture, cold plunge stuff?
I think it's important, like any passion you have, the more you can learn about the wholeness. If you want to be a great athlete, I think it's important not only to just be like someone that could be effective on the field. You should be, as a student, watch the film, know what are we trying to accomplish in this play or in this game, right? And then to take it a step further from there, to be the total athlete. How can I better make myself better prepared to be better utilized? So
Yeah.
that's how I would say look at yourself early.
Okay. So for you, I mean, obviously you're gifted athletically, but everybody in the NFL is gifted athletically. And for someone to have a great career like you over a long period of time, like it takes, like you said, that discipline and that durability. And obviously the best ability is availability. So you just being on the field, it helps that and all the stuff you're talking about. But were there other things that you think, other than like your athleticism and size, that gave you an advantage over other people, like the way you mentally approached the game or studied the game or anything like that?
For sure. 100 miles per hour. I always believe in finish. I have a son that's a running back. He's getting ready to be a senior in high school, and he could be 60 yards from the goal line in a practice, and I'm always yelling finish, finish, and I'm trying to be subconsciously in his head of saying, think about each and every carry as this is your last, and if it's something that you're going to do and you're going to be the job is done, you want to do it in a way that you're proud of it. So finish, and finish in good habits. And if that's scoring, finish scoring. Finish, finish, and finish fast. And that's kind of the message I always wanted. I've always championed inside of my mantra, and it's one that I think kept me around for a long time because I always thought about finishing and finishing with pride and finishing with efficiency.
Okay. So you think that just comes mostly just from pride, or was there like an experience that made you realize that any play could be your last?
Well, at running back, I think you should always have the mentality because it's more real for you than any other position. But also, I think I from the moment I stepped in the D1 training camp, right? It's the next level of football. When you go D1, you go professional football, everyone's good. Everyone's passionate about the sport. But now what's going to separate you is not only what you studied and learned in the classroom, but how you effectively perform it on the football field. So if I could practice something 100 miles per hour and replicate that, and I know you can't replicate game speed, but if I could do it in a sense it's 100 miles per hour, I'm going to be able to better react to that in the game. It won't be surprising to me, but I'm also making my teammates better, which, in theory, you hope that it makes you better day in and day out.
Yeah, all that stuff makes a lot of sense. Okay, so for you then to carry on your career, you went, like I said, 11, or you had 1,000 yards for 8 straight seasons. You're basically just like the face of the Rams organization for like a decade, and then it's finally like I think like a contract expired. You came into free agency. Like, what was that process like? Of like probably for the first time in your life, an organization telling you like, oh, I don't know, like we don't know about you, like we don't know if you're worth the money, and then you're having to go find a new home. What was that process like, and why'd you choose Atlanta?
That process actually, it was one of those things. It's like a breakup that is happening, right? You're like, damn, we got to go to dinner. I got to make this. I got to say what I got to say, kind of thing. And I had that was year 9. To your point, I was getting ready to go into year 10. Yes. So I was finishing my 9th year campaign, and in those 9 years, I've had 6 head coaches, counting interim.
Wow.
So 6 guys in 9 years, I've had a different face in that head coach's office, and I've seen the office turn over. Like I've seen it decorated every way, right? I'm like, oh, I remember the couch was over here, now the couch is over there, right?
You're the old guy in the locker room telling them back in my day, it used to be like this.
Right. So I think at 9 years of seeing that and going through the change so often, I was ready for something fresh and new, and I wanted, and also understanding the big boogie year of 30. Running backs turning 30, he's going to fall off a cliff, right? So I was very conscious of that too. So I just thought it was me wanting a fresh start. It was a way for the relationship not to go any sour than it needed to. It was just one of those things of understanding. We gave each other our best, and went off into different directions. Then free agency was quite interesting because you thinking, okay, now I'm available. All 31 teams are going to want my services, and that's not true either. So, when you start talking about making selections, it really comes to best fit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Falcons fan, so I remember when we signed you. That was exciting.
Yeah, it was.
What were you looking for when in free agency? Like you said, just a fresh start. Was there certain things you were looking for in an organization or a team, or just whoever paid you the most?
It was a combination, right? It was a combination of the paper. The money had to be in line with what I thought I was, my worth and the market at that time. But also, um, the Falcons just presented Roddy White, Julio Jones, Tony Gonzalez, right? So you're thinking like, wow, you put me in there, it should click. But the thing that I learned in that chapter of life is you can have all the talent in the world, but if the guys are not um, chemistry, right? If you don't have that chemistry together, it's never going to work. And, injuries from myself to Roddy. Roddy had a bad ankle his first year. That last year, we couldn't protect Matt Ryan. So it was a lot of things that played into why things just to come together because on paper, you would think it would make sense.
Yeah, you were there just a little early before the real brotherhood and that team chemistry kind of gelled in that organization.
Correct. Yeah. I thought of potential.
So for you, just in your experience, and then I think your last stop was in New England. So I mean, just if now that you can able to look back at your full career, like I think a lot of players always talk about like obviously the locker room, like those Pro Bowl experiences. For you, what were your favorite NFL memories from your time that stand out?
A lot of it, I would say, sharing those moments of just like I'm a sponge, so I like meeting the true essence of someone. I would say the knowledge that I gained over the years, right? I've always been a passionate kid about the sport of football. So getting me to buy in about a team or like you draft me, I'm your guy. Like that's to me. Like I'm just loyal. That's just my makeup. But then you start meeting in the locker room other guys that just are passionate about the sport, and you learn about what techniques or what things that they use to keep them motivated. And those are just I cherry pick those nuggets. So you think about guys like Aeneas Williams, Hall of Fame DB, you think about even sharing the backfield with Marshall Faulk, Hall of Fame guy. Then you go on and I would go on to play with Tom Brady and be coached by Belichick, right? It's just like those nuggets of meeting individuals, that's great at the same thing. But seeing what motivated them and what kept their fire burning, it's what those nuggets I've always cherished.
Yeah, I mean, just being surrounded by greatness on a daily basis, I feel like you can absorb so much. Did you get a lot of that experience too from like going to the Pro Bowls, like meeting all those guys there? Was that a big deal for you at the time or not really?
Not really, man. I was in celebratory mode. It was more like, I'm not. It's like if you ever, I love to hike, right? So it's like when you finally get to the top, you're like, yeah, man, like I deserve this. It was a great moment. I'm going to soak this 20, 30 minutes in. And that's what the Pro Bowl was me for the season. It was just me soaking it in, having fun with guys, obviously. But it was, I wasn't there for the classroom lectures at that moment.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So for you, you're finally getting towards like the tail end of your career. And it's interesting always talking to athletes because it's like you're retiring on paper, like at an age that a lot of people start their career. So what was like for you, like kind of the emotions or the thought process? Like you said, with the Rams, it was like a breakup you saw coming. Obviously, you're not going to play in the NFL forever. So for you, what was kind of the emotion of dealing with that? And then what was the thought process of like who you're going to be off the football field and what you're going to continue to do?
Well, you can't play forever. And the great ones we do. We think we're, and I guess selfishly, egotistically, I call myself great. But that's it. You think you are. And the reality, when the window was closing on me, I wanted to make sure I was very ever present. I wanted to be very present in the moment, so I had no regrets, and that allowed for me not to look back. I didn't want to be the pillar of salt. You turn back and now you can't look forward, kind of analogy. And I just being very grateful that last year in New England, knowing things may be coming to a close. And then as I turned the page in the chapter, I didn't finish my senior year. So it was a promise I made myself and to my mom that I would finish my undergrad. So I used that year as a year of finding myself, grounding myself again, and allowing myself that grace to figure out what is next. Because, even when I was 20 years old, I wanted to be an architect. Fast forward 12, 13 years later, that passion, I have a family, going to school for that length of time, does it make sense? Well, maybe not. So I feel you could do other projects of builder, and so I could scratch that creative itch that way. So now what I want to hone in And I realized at that point, taking a year of schooling, I wanted to help people in the community. So I went back and got my degree in that area of just giving back to the community.
Okay. So what excites you now of like helping in the community? Like what drives you? What kind of community work are you doing now?
So I'm a co-founder of a barber school. I believe in the trades, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I believe in education. I also believe in the trades because everyone's not meant to and should have to go to 4-year university, have a make a living that you could be proud of and take care of a family on. So I believe in the trades, and me and my best friend started a barber school here in town called the Original Barber School. And from that, we have a clothing line, and the Original Barber School helped these young people here. We've been open 2 years. We put over 100 barbers on their career paths. We help them not only find a trade and a skill, but we teach them also financial literacy and how to become better entrepreneurs in the discipline of day-to-day work, what it takes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think learning those traits are like so important nowadays because of the way like technology is advancing in AI. Like a lot of these jobs are going to be pushed back, but like people are always going to need to get their hair cut, right? And you like
Yeah, but even then, right? Yes, people are always going to need their haircut. You could take that skill set to anywhere in the world. That's one of the things that was a sell to me. You could go anywhere in the world and provide a living for yourself to get on your feet. If you choose to stay in that area, kudos to you. But you are always able to, provide for yourself. Secondly, barber schools provided services to the community. So we take kids and there could be school age, $5 haircuts. For seniors and adults, $10 haircuts. And if you're law enforcement or serving the military on Wednesdays, it's free, right? So it's one of those things. Not only are you giving the richness of education to someone, but you're giving someone in the community a haircut that they can afford.
Yeah. And I think also the experience you bring of like, there's the discipline and like you said, the financial literacy, like, I mean, that stuff for whatever reason is still not taught in school and like really anyway. And so I'm sure you, like you said, just being around the greats, you've learned a lot. So is there any like quick financial literacy advice you could give to the people, or that's something, advice that you were given that's helped you?
I learned this one late in my football career, right? When I was making that kind of income. The power of compound interest. The power of compound interest is so impactful. You don't think about 2% or 3%, how that over time, how that builds up, and it takes the stress away. It's very powerful. I would say to anybody, athlete or not, the power of compound interest.
Well, that's good financial advice. What do you think is the worst financial decision you made when you were like a young kid making a lot of money? Did you buy anything dumb, or do you feel like you were pretty disciplined with that too?
You definitely. I was dumb. I was dumb. I probably won't get a vehicle endorsement after this, but I think buying a brand new vehicle, especially 6-7 figures, brand new out the gate is not the most sound decision you can make. I think that, and then I think jewelry. I think, especially if it's one that doesn't come from the fashion house or the jewelry, the watch, the timepiece house. If you go in there and put something on it that's not original, I think you're hurting yourself in the long run as well.
I gotcha. Well,
Wow.
I appreciate you sharing the advice on that. That was pretty much all the questions I had for you. Was there anything else you wanted to plug or talk about, or where can the people find you on social media?
Yeah, I would love to be able, this coming up June here in a month. Oh, I don't know we're going to air it, so let me say this. Here coming up in June, the commencement speech from my alumni at Oregon State. I'll be a keynote speaker there, and take great pride in that and privilege in having the opportunity and the platform to speak to an institution that meant a lot to me. They helped me change my life path, and given this opportunity, I want to make sure that I do them service and making that selection of having me come in and do that. But also, for those that want to follow me on social media, I tend to try to make creative content in short-term mini documentaries about legends of the game, to also just inspirational quotes about keep going and giving some positivity to what can sometimes be such an algorithm of negativity. So you can find me at SJ39 on most platforms.
Yeah, I saw your YouTube channel. I saw some of the videos of talking about the old greats.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Thanks for chatting with us, and that's all I got for you, man. That's a show.
Thank you.